Good. Good afternoon. Thank you for being in attendance. This Procurement Policy Board meeting will now come to order. My name is Guillermo Chacon and I'm the chair of the Procurement Policy Board. Before we begin, I would like to welcome our new member, Mark, Policy Director of the Mayor's Office of Policy and Planning. We're so excited, Mark, to have you here. Welcome, my friend. Hey, dude. Familia.
Good to see you.
Everybody, how you doing?
Sorry about that. I was saying that we're so excited, Mark, to have you, and he will be replacing Alicia, who is on maternity leave. By the way, then we send congratulations to Alicia, the arrival of her brand new baby, and we wish her, the baby, and the entire family good health and best wishes, and of course, a lot of happiness. Now I ask each member of the Procurement Policy Board at this time to introduce themselves for the record.
Sure. Charlotte Manchin from the Controller's Office.
Mark Henry from the Mayor's Office.
Wayne Lambert from Turner & Townsend.
Victor Olds, Controller's Office.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. And now we will just ask the rest of the folks to introduce themselves.
Jessica Liu, Mayor's Office of Contract Services.
Connor Redden, Mayor's Office of Contract Services.
Kim Egbert, Mayor's Office of Contract Services.
Ray Sanchez, Mayor's Office of Contract Services.
David Garfinkel, Mayor's Office of Contract Services.
Carrie Nagorski, Controller's Office.
Robbie Akron, Controller's Office.
Chris Scalzo, Labels Local 1010 West.
Thank you, everyone. We have quorum, and that's good news. Now I ask, thank you everyone to introduce themselves. The purpose of today's meeting is to consider certain changes to the PPB rules. The first item on today's agenda is to vote on the new proposed rule change into the CAPA process. The potential form of this rule change is included on the PPB webpage, with the understanding that this is a draft and might change as it makes their way through the CAPA process and would require subsequent votes by the PPB for adoption. This item will amend PPB Rule Section 2-11 relating to public hearings, notice and comment. And at this time I recognize David Garfinkel, Deputy General Counsel of the Mayor's Office of Procurement Services, to speak further on the rule on behalf of the administrations. David?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak before the PPB about the reforms to PPB Section 2-11. Amendments to the New York Charter require public notice and comment for any contract for goods, services, or construction to be awarded by other than competitive sealed bidding or competitive sealed bids from pre-qualified vendors in excess of $100,000. This rule amendment would provide the public with easier access to comment on a potential contract and ultimately result in a more transparent procurement process from the prior iteration. The proposed rule change would rename the section from public hearing requirements to public notice and comment requirements and update the section for clarity and consistency. The additional requirements for the public notice would detail the contents of the public notices and the process for public comments. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the board.
Thank you, David. Is any member of the PPB would like to ask any questions or comments on this first item? Yes.
I would just like to comment and say that I'm happy as a PPB member that the proposed amendment is being brought to us for introduction into the capital process. It was a recommendation that came out of the Capital Process Reform Task Force, which was initially convened under the former First Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo. She had asked us to be part of it, and the Controller and I have personally been very happy to advocate and support for this in Albany. And I want to thank the Mayor's Office of Contract Services for taking into consideration a recommendation that we made, which is just to help facilitate access to the public of public comments that are provided. I think we all know that there isn't a whole lot of public testimony that happens at these hearings, which is part of the reason why we advocated for continuing it, but allowing it to happen online. While currently it seems that the public is able to access these through FOIL, Freedom of Information Request, in the interest of transparency, making it easier for things that are otherwise already public. We appreciate Mox's consideration in finding a way to make them available more easily to the public online. But otherwise, really happy to be able to be part of the vote that introduces this into CAPA.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else like to make any comments, questions? All right, if not, if I would request a member to please make a motion to move this item. Charlie, very good. And second by Victor. Thank you very much. And with that, let me ask for all in favor to vote, showing your hands. Very good, thank you. Very good. So let the record show that we adopted item 1 to this first on the first item of this agenda. The second item on today's meeting is the new proposed rule changing into the CAPA process. The potential form of this rule change is included on the PPB webpage, with the understanding that this is a draft and might change as it make their way through the CAPA process and will require subsequent votes by the Procurement Policy Board for adoption. This item will amend PPB Rule Section 2-10 related to vendor protests. At this time, I will recognize again David on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Contract Services to speak further on this item on behalf of the administration. David?
Thank you again, Chair. So amendments to the New York City Charter require the PPB to promulgate rules authorizing a vendor-designated representative to protest the determination of an agency procurement action on behalf of a vendor. This reform would also create a new paragraph to define what a vendor-designated representative and provide updating to the numbering to help facilitate this process. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak before the board.
Thank you, David. Let me ask, does anyone have a question, comment, or statement on this second item? Charlie?
I just want to, again, say that we are in support of this proposed amended change to the existing procurement rules that support the protest procedures. Just to sort of further emphasize why the ability for vendors or their designees to be able to bring up protests. Last year, our office, as a result of a protest submitted by a vendor in regards to a contract that the Department of Corrections had awarded, uncovered that the agency had improperly allowed the awarded vendor to correct its bid. It was impermissible correction under the city's procurement rules. In addition to that, the vendor that had protested the award had indicated that they believed that there was collusion between the awarded vendor and the second low bidder. Unfortunately, the Department of Corrections had not actually reviewed the protest and timely, which is required under the procurement rules. And so we only received the Department of Corrections' response to that protest while the contract was already pending our review. It was both untimely and in addition showed that the Department of Corrections actually did not review the merits of the protest. Subsequent to that, after returning the contract to the Department of Corrections, we received notice from the Department of Corrections and from the Mayor's Office of Contract Services who had delegated its authority to the Department of Corrections that it was canceling the award of the contract to the vendor. So just using this as an illustrative example as to why offering vendors and their designees an opportunity to protest sometimes can indicate and provide information to oversight agencies such as ourselves as to potential issues with the procurement process and the award. So in furtherance of that, we are in support of vendors being able to designate members on their behalf to bring to light potential issues with the award of a contract.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other comments on this second item in the agenda? All right, may I request a motion to move the second item? Mark, thank you. Second by, thank you, Wayne. Appreciate that. All in favor? Show that the adoption of the second item on the agenda by our PPB meeting. The third item on the agenda is to vote on the new proposed rule changing to the CAPA process. The potential form of this rule is to include on the PPB webpage, with the understanding that this is a draft and might change as it make way through the CAPA process and will require subsequent votes by the PPB for final adoption. This item will amend PPB Rule 2-08 related to the filling of the passport questionnaires and passport questionnaires exception for certain vendors. At this time, I recognize Connor Redden. Thank you, sir. Agency Attorney for the Mayor's Office on Contract Services, who will speak on behalf of the administration. Connor?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak before the PPB about these reforms to Section 2-08 of the PPB rules. The PPB is proposing amendments in order to codify current practices regarding passport questionnaire filing exemptions for governmental and quasi-governmental agencies and partial waivers for portions of the passport questionnaires when in the best interest of the city. The amendments would replace references to Vendex with passport in the subdivision title and paragraphs, clarify language in paragraph 2, replacing the heading of current paragraph 5 with waiver, limited exemptions in the best interest of the city, and revise the remaining language, amend paragraph 6 to replace the terms exemption with waiver and exempt with waive, create a new paragraph 7 providing disclosure exemptions for government and quasi-government entities, amend current paragraph 7 to add the waivers and disclosure exemptions to the reporting requirements, and update the paragraph numbers accordingly. Thank you again for the opportunity to address the board regarding this proposed amendment.
Thank you so much. There is a member who wishes to make any statement or ask any questions on this item? All right. If no questions, may I request a motion to move the third item? All right, Wayne, second by, very good. All in favor, show of hands. Aye, very good. The record show that we adopted that particular item, and then moving along, the fourth item on the agenda is to vote on a new proposed rule changing to the CAPA process. The potential form of this rule change is included on the PPB webpage, with the understanding that this is a draft and might change as this make their way through the CAPA process and will require subsequent votes by the PPB for adoption. The item will amend PPB Rule Section 4-01 relating to the agency performance evaluations of vendors. At this time, I recognize Jessica Liu, Agency Attorney of the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, who to speak further on this rule on behalf of the administration. Jessica?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak before the PPB about these reforms to Section 4-01 of the PPB rules. This amendment will clarify the criteria and exemptions for performance evaluations, outline the agency's responsibilities after performance evaluations, and add a time frame for the completion of agency performance evaluations. This amendment would require performance evaluations to be completed within 90 days after the anniversary of the contract start date. Thank you again for the opportunity to address the board regarding this proposed amendment.
Thank you, Jessica. Is any member of the PPB would like to ask any question or make a comment? Yes. We'd love to hear your voice.
I just want to say, again, we have no issues with the proposed amendment. I do want to just reiterate comments that I made, the recommendations that I made when this board promulgated interim rules, the increase to the MWBE small purchase method. The small purchase method, which was previously called the MWBE non-discretionary method, was initially capped at $150,000 based on state legislative authority. And so at the time when the PPB rules were being amended, it made sense to build that rule into the city's existing PPB rule for small purchases, given that the threshold is $100,000, so there was a differential of $50,000. We have been proud supporters, the Comptroller's Office, of an increase to that threshold, and have joined the administration in advocating for that up in Albany, and we're proud when we were able to be successful in getting the threshold at the current level, which is $1.5 million. We were also happy to support the PPB in giving it the flexibility to allow agencies to use it at increased thresholds should the state legislator in the future continue to increase it at 1.5 million. However, it is now at 1.5 million, and it has increased from 150 to 500 to a million to 1.5, and it still lives in the small purchase procurement method, which is again intended to be capped at $100,000. As a result of that, and the way that the rules are written, performance evaluations are not required except in the event that there is deficient, which isn't quite defined, performance. And while that may not have been so much of an issue when we were talking about a cap of $150,000, being able to award contracts up to $1.5 million, from our perspective, it is important to evaluate and record performance, even in instances where it's not deficient, and perhaps even more important when performance is not deficient. Our office released its annual MWBE report just a couple of weeks ago. The controller spoke about it at MWBE caucus weekend, and we find that the MWBE spend for the city is not growing. A couple of problematic areas are, despite the large number of vendors that are certified by the Department of Small Business Services each year, only about 20% of those vendors receive contracts, which means that the city is continually using the same vendors. And in an interest in diversifying the diverse vendors that the city is doing business with, you want to give information to city agencies to support them wanting to and understanding that there are many MWB vendors capable of being awarded city contracts. And in many instances, that is, showing to city vendors that, city agencies rather, that it is not just the vendors that they are accustomed to doing business with that are capable of being awarded these contracts, but that there are many thousands of MWB vendors who are doing incredible work for this city. Unfortunately, if you're not documenting their good performance, you're not sharing that good news. And so I think that there is importance in being able to document not just deficient performance, but positive performance of our MWBE vendors. Currently, as our report indicated, the average contract value through that method is only $244,000, despite the fact that the city has the authority to go up to $1.5 million. But our hope, and I know that members of the administration support this, is that that average value will increase. And as it does, I think that it remains important for this board to continue to consider whether or not exempting contracts procured pursuant to that method because of where it lives in the procurement rules remains responsible, and not just responsible for city agencies, but responsible to the vendors that we're hoping have a broader exposure to city contracting.
Very good point. Very good. Anybody else like to add any comments? Thank you for bringing those issues, Charlotte. Appreciate that. If no more comments, may I request a motion to move the final item in the agenda? Charlotte, second by. Thank you. All in favor? Very good. And with that, I believe we adopted the final item in this agenda, and with that, we conclude our meeting. Thank you, everyone. Safe spring. Sweet.
Thank you.